so that everything else on the show takes on an added meaning if there's not so much of it.
Right.
We have what I think is, I like the idea of the reaction afterwards, and that's just the talking show.
Yeah.
And I just wish they, and when they do give it a chance, it works.
Yeah.
But I also know they're under a lot of pressure to do ratings, and it takes time to establish guys to be rating draws. One of the things you're talking about, like the niche performers, and trying to draw them in so that, and try to make something that appeals to people, but you're basically really getting a certain part of the audience excited. And I cover this in the book. Can I plug the book as well?
Plug away, of course.
It's a Countdown to Lockdown, and I was talking about the guns, specifically saying that I saw them as like a modern-day Hardys.
Yeah.
And I remember when the Hardys were super over to an extent that, like, my publicist at Regan Books said she went out on the book tour with them, and it was like being at a Beatles concert.
Yeah.
But yet, there were people within WWE who were not high on them because that quarter hour might go down a little bit. And I would say, like, we're not a universal audience. It's not like you come in and if you miss the first 15 minutes of this drama, you're lost. Like, you can pick up the pieces of a wrestling show pretty quickly, or enjoy it on its own merits for 5, 10, 15
different
minutes.
segments at a time.
Yeah, and even if we were losing some people who thought, oh, the dumb kids or whatever, the fact that you're drawing in other people who love them means that
young viewers.
And again, he hits young viewers that are out of your, that more importantly can grow into the harder stuff.
Right.
Yeah. And with Jeff and Matt's case, they did. The viewers did.
Absolutely.
And
they started to dominate the arenas and the ratings and everything else.
And everything fell into place. But I don't think anyone even takes in consideration. You know what? Like, my kids are 9 and 7. They're asleep by the time the show, shows by Impact and Raw. By the time they're over. So if you put the guns, 2 years ago at a main event, and it doesn't do the numbers that you'd hope for, it's really not their fault that a lot of their audience was asleep.
And it's even harken back to when we were watching wrestling when you're younger. There's room for the guys at the beginning of the show to really get the crowd going, to really get me excited on a Saturday morning to watch my wrestling.
I think you just hit it. The thing that got me into it was I would watch WWF Superstars on Saturday mornings at 11 on Channel 2 in Detroit. Channel 50, I think it was actually. And frankly, what were they? They were all squash matches. Yeah. You never saw Hogan other than promos. Yeah. But what it did was it got the guys, their entrances, and their finishes over.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
And it's the most underutilized art. I mean, the job guy is a lost art form because it was important.
Yeah. Yes,
it's sort of
and there is a place for that on the shows. Even with I remember Booker standing up. This is in WWE when the Monday Night Wars were still going hot and heavy, and he was pushing for an occasional squash match, and people like to see it. And WWE ended up doing it with Umaga, did it perfectly. They did it for a year straight. And I remember
we're doing a little bit with Ezekiel Jackson now.
Are they? Okay,
started a little bit.
Okay. And I remember telling one of the guys that Umaga faced, like, you know what, like, all right, you did the stuff in the ring, but when you walk out and you're smiling and putting the thumb up, you're diminishing him. Yeah. Your job is to show what a monster he is, and you do that from the moment
you walk back to the locker room like this.
You walk back like that, and you walk in. And I watched an old WWE match. It was with Matt Morgan and Shannon Moore, and Matt came out. Shannon was in the ring, and Matt came out, and Shannon was just like shaking his head, like resigning himself to the fact he was about to get slaughtered. Yeah. And that look got Matt over, and Matt will get hot about this, but he's still a work in progress. But if you had more moments like that, that's the type of thing that sticks with people, and that's the type of thing that gets over. And it starts from the moment people see you, and it ends when you get in the curtain.
When you walk through the curtain till when you walk back out of the curtain.
It's subtle, and I would draw it akin to when making movies. It's the reaction shot.
Yeah.
Okay. The best. We'll talk about Leslie Nielsen a little bit.
Yeah.
Leslie Nielsen's genius was he played everything straight.
Yeah.
You never let on that he was in a comedy. That's why it worked. And it was other people. It was Ricardo Montalban, kind of the
O.J. Simpson looking at
or George Kennedy, going, Frank, what? That was what made it work. And I think that is a lost art form. And I do, keep it simple, stupid. At the end of the day, and let your audience ease into that. And I think, look, at a certain level, I actually think TNA will be well served by getting a Saturday morning Spike slot and literally just taking what's the other show they take? Not Reaction, but they do the syndicated
Explosion.
And turning that into
why not?
superstars.
Why not? You know,
what is to be heard? Game of that.
You talk about the importance of the finishes. One of the things I talked about in the book Countdown to Lockdown and building up the match with Sting, having seen the match that Undertaker and Shawn Michaels had in 2009, which was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I saw how they made the most out of every move. Like, I'm looking like, all right, this is phenomenal, but I see how they're doing that. I was like, I'm going to try to take elements of that. And I went, oh, like, part of what's making this thing work so well is that people are seeing moves that they know defeat other people.
Yeah.
And they're seeing, you know,
which have been built up for 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
I can finish you with this move.
Yes.
And then, no, it didn't finish
No,
this
it
time.
didn't, and it just keeps climbing.
Yeah.
It keeps climbing, and I was like, oh, I don't actually have a finishing move to this generation.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, before you go and say, hey, how about the sock?
Yeah.
First of all, let me ask you when the last time you saw the sock win a match.
Right.
I know there's a whole generation.
The mandible
of
became
fans.
more of a humor piece.
Humor or the temporary
Right.
5-second pop before it got cut off.
Right.
But I was like, there are literally fans here who've never seen me win a single match,
Yeah.
let alone win one with a finishing move. And that's a trick. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, there's a joke where I think it was Al Snow was asked what his finish was, and he said, here, and I said, yeah. He goes, I don't have one.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have one, and so you've got to keep guys strong enough to where their losses mean something, and I think you do that, like you said, maybe with an explosion show, specifically geared to getting guys.
And to your point about Shawn and Undertaker in their match, I think this goes back to music. It's well placed music licensing. Because I think we can all go and look at the cover of Running Up the Hill that did Placebo. I think it's Placebo. Did that cover that was used in every promo for 2 years. They did it in both WrestleManias. That was the sort of theme of that match.
Yeah.
And they used it in the post when they covered Shawn off. And, you know, look, that cost them a little bit of money. But the fact is, and I would look at this for TNA, we go back to ECW where Paul was able to make a Tommy Boy deal. There is no reason with the music industry getting killed the way it is today that someone will not make you a deal and say, please take our stuff. You get 1 million some people every week. Please take it. It's like insane.
It's like we saw a movie not too long ago, a screening of an unreleased movie that I have some friends that worked on, that the score was just not fitting it. And, you know, that is so important to a storyteller in their arsenal telling a story, is to have that undercurrent laid down for them so they can build off it. And with that particular match, they had...
I let my hair down here.
You know, go.
I mean, not metaphorically. I mean,
you can do that too. Tangle just came out this last week.
I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, you know, that doesn't look very...
That's fine. That's a little Dr. Tom Pritchard kind of thing.
That's what I was looking for.
I knew you were going for that. I knew you were a Heavenly Bodies completist. I knew that eventually. Yes. But no, look, I think let's look at even the movies that have been well sold over the last year. Social Network's trailer, all about the music.
All about music.
Battle of Los Angeles, which is a great trailer, all about the music.
Yeah.
And I think it counts.
As long as we're talking music and movies, can I point out the genius of Step Brothers?
Please,
sure.
Yes, of course.
The musical selections in that movie, and this is a movie that to me is like a fine wine. You know, I saw it in the theaters. I think I was just a little awkward because of all the F-bombs are being dropped. I had my little kids there, and I didn't realize how great it was until you see some of these great lines. And I know, you know, someone put up as a tribute a site that had random Leslie Nielsen quotes. You know, and every time you press it, it reminds you of a great Leslie Nielsen moment. So in this case, you know, some of these Step Brothers quotes are so good. You know, you want to do karate in the basement? Yep. Like, it's just did we just become best friends? Yep.
I just look at that, I'm like, Mary Steenburgen still looks so good.
But now you look at the moment he goes, did we just become best friends? Yep. Want to do karate in the basement? Yep. And then get it in. And to hit Hall & Oates, You Make My Dreams Come True as the bonding video was incredible.
Yeah.
But yet there they have the operatic score as Chris Kardaki and the Schoolyard Bullies are doing the number on Farrell and Riley. And then to go home with another Italian, I don't even know the name of it, although it's famous enough that we all know it subconsciously, was just incredible.
Yeah.
You take the same movie and put 3 different musical selections in. To me, it's not the same.
Or I'll give you a better example as it relates to our wrestling conversation.
Okay.
Three songs that sound the same that don't evoke a different emotion for each scene in the background. the variety of those pieces you just mentioned, the Hall & Oates and the two composers, like they're different. And when you see the action in front of it, it elicits a different emotion.
And I think, to your point as well, some of these songs, I think in the other guys, it was, I think, Average White Band, I think is what they were bringing out all the time.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that's Farrell and McKay, and they have that era they like. But I think, to a large level, you've got, when you look at movie trailers particularly, and I remember, Hollywood does this, where they will go, and in selling a movie, a lot of times you'll get it, where the trailer will be a song that was popular like a year and a half ago, and it ruins the trailer because it's been so overplayed. If you saw a trailer tonight that had the I've Got a Feeling, the Black Eyed Peas song, you would kill yourself probably, right? And it would ruin it. And I remember that David Gray's Babylon got used in like every romantic comedy thing for 2 years, and it killed it. And I think that that's why in this Social Network, the sort of operatic Creep by Radiohead was genius.
Yeah.
And you'd never heard it. And that's why that stuff went. It's what was Jarhead got sold entirely because of the Kanye West.
Yeah.
It got an opening movie. The movie did not ultimately make money, but it got a huge opening just because of the sampling of Kanye West.
Kidding.
As the soldiers were marching.
As Soldier Beat. Unbelievable.
Now, Mick, you're, speaking of movies, a nice little transition, you're writing a movie about a subject you know very dear yourself.
That's right.
How is that process going for
With
you?
a fine executive producer, I must say. One of the best in the land, if I may say.
Amazing.
Yes, well put.
We're excited to have you on board, and I love the director, Christopher Scott. He really had a vision that made me think they could succeed. And really, until The Wrestler came out, I didn't think Hollywood can make a movie. With all due respect to Ready to Rumble,
Ready to Rumble, necessary. Yeah, no,
but even in that movie, I was like, wait a second, they're in a state-of-the-art arena, but they have porta potties. So they can do food
I mean, I went to the premiere of that movie, and I just moved to town. I'd been here for a little bit, and frankly, Eric was a bit of a douche to me at the premiere. And I'm like, dude, it's a weird thing. Eric hired me at WCW, and I've often sent off there, like, dude, when I was an exec, I'd be like, come on in, I'm happy to help you out. Would never take the meeting or anything. He was weirded out by, somebody hired when he was 17, and then I was a VP at a studio, and I think it was maybe a little weird. I'd still do business, but I don't have an issue with it.
It could have been a little weird.
But ultimately, I bumped into him at the premiere or whatever. I remember sitting there watching the premiere and talking to everybody at the after party and going, you just made a movie where, again, understanding wrestling fans, we're all kind of a little embarrassed that we're wrestling fans. We don't always say...
But you want to be given a reason to stand up and go, that's what I love about it.
And you just made a movie where you basically said, no, you're a schmuck. You're every stereotype we could have imagined.
Yeah.
It was one of the most insane...
It was funny because it was like Hollywood guys that had never been to a independent show or a big show or never watched it on TV as a kid. It's like they made their story of it, and to know that it came from some people who were very... connected in the business. That was a bit, but just, like you said, The Wrestler...
Look, Cole and Robbins were the sports movie guys.
Yeah. When The Wrestler came out, you had to be thinking, wow, it's possible to tell a dramatic
and this
story.
is, a movie I'd been, offered a hand in as, creative consultant. And I remember I was in New York City, I was in Long Island, and I was like, I don't know if this is worth giving up a day at home for the kids.
Right.
The kids for. And because I didn't think it could be made. And honestly, I thought when I heard Mickey Rourke was in it, I was like, oh, God, this has got no chance whatsoever. And then, within a minute, first of all, his performance was so great, I was captivated. And I just kept thinking, I was like trying to see like a little bit of me in the role. Like, okay, he's got lousy flannel shirts. And, I pour a tire. Maybe that's for me. But I was sitting there looking at those credits going, geez, I wish I'd participated in this film in some way. But then when Chris came back to me, we'd met several years ago, and he was telling me that there was a vision he had, of how to tell this story that wasn't done in A to Z. I say, with all due respect to Kevin Costner, the Wyatt Earp movie was not what people wanted to see.
And then this happened. And then this happened.
Right.
And then this happened.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we did not want to tell that type of story. So meeting, a year or so ago for the first time since then, seeing that we kind of had a similar vision. I had an idea of how we could, use the narrative, to tell you could tell a bigger story, but from the perspective of a smaller time period.
Right.
And he liked it. He was open to it, and so we've been collaborating. And I think we're going to, as I said, like in the initial press release, I think we're going to surprise a lot of people.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I would say just from my sort of involvement in it as well, and again, I think we're going to be actually streaming some of the writing sessions. We've had some conversations along those ends. I think the thing that makes, and Aronofsky's my cousin, and so I was at Fox, and when we started talking a little bit, we were not cool. We do that every now and then. And the wrestler was coming along, and I mentioned, I happen to work in the wrestling business. If you want to take a look, I'm happy to look at it. And I looked and I gave them notes, and probably my biggest contribution to the movie are you can't have a character named Booker D, because there was a character named Booker D, and they don't use blood capsules. They actually take a blade and do this. That was the one thing they got wrong from script. That was really it. Other than that, it was still pretty solid.